yesterday's news.
Hello and welcome to Old News, the programme and podcast which looks at news stories of the day through the papers of yesterday. School attendance. A bit different this week, perhaps. Don't think we've tackled this one before. Been in the news recently with, I think, Arbury, Castletown and Maloo MHK Jason Morehouse raising the issue of attendance in schools and putting a question to the DESC. I thought I'd dive back and see. It features quite a bit, and I think for certainly a long time the papers actually published school attendance records on a regular basis, whether that was weekly or monthly. I didn't double check if I'm honest, but they came up regularly with just attendance figures as a matter of course. But there were more articles too with perhaps more interesting issues. In the Alabama Times, Saturday, November the 12th, 1881, the first of several pieces, I assume, as this one's number 7, there must have been at least 8, because there's another number 8 I saw, and lengthy articles on papers on education, and in this case, number 7, school attendance. As I say, I'll give you a brief see, it's tiny print and goes on for several columns. Probably the most important of all the many educational problems which are now perplexing the country, it starts, and certainly the most important, next to the question of the reorganisation of our school districts and school committees, is the great question of school attendance. The country, in the last 9 years, has expended very large sums of money upon new schools and the alteration and enlargement of old schools, and there's now school accommodation of a very superior kind for every child of school age throughout the country, except in 1 or 2 places where it is in the process of being provided. These schools have not only been provided at great cost, which in many cases has pressed very heavily upon the ratepayers and will continue to do so for many years to come, but also their maintenance. It goes on, the school committees cannot legally be relieved altogether from the responsibility of enforcing the school attendance clauses, but it is perfectly open to the Board of Education to insist that they shall perform this duty more punctually and to supervise in any way thought desirable the measures necessary to make the law effective. Of the various measures proposed from time to time with this object, 2 only appear to have any amount of feasibility in them, of promise or any degree of success. These are, first, to divide the island into a number of districts, say 4, having the 4 chief towns as their centres, and appoint an attendance officer or visitor to each, and second, to appoint 1 attendance officer for the entire island. Each of these 2 schemes possesses its own special advantages, and each again has its peculiar disadvantages, and we propose very briefly to compare the 2 together and see which of them appears to promise best for the object desired. In making this comparison, we ought to promise that we shall regard these schemes from a common sense point of view and consider solely which of them is most likely to secure the best attendance at school with the least disturbance of our existing educational arrangements, a matter of great consequence in the present state of the law, and with the least charge upon the public funds. And then it goes on to debate the pros and cons of each of these separate issues. In 1881, in the Times, December the 17th, so just a month later or so, we see paper 8. Papers on Education, number 8, the Board of Education and School Attendance. By a curious coincidence, we are told, while we were writing our last paper on the school attendance question and lamenting, like the chorus in a Greek play, the complete failure of all our past attempts to secure a satisfactory attendance at school and the disappointment of our hopes of keeping abreast of our neighbours across the channel in the race of improvement. Across the channel, the Board of Education, the educational deus ex machina, suddenly made itself visible and published its intention of remedying the evils we groaned under. Great language. From the position occupied among us by the Board, the authority which it possesses and the power which it undoubtedly wields, the announcement of its determination to grapple with the cankerous neglect of the educational clauses and the publication of a plan for giving practical effect to this determination is an event of considerable public importance and one which cannot fail to attract the serious attention of the country. The attitude of the Board upon this important question has for a long time been curiously analogous to that of the Imperial Government with regard to the Irish Land League. The evils resulting from the general neglect of that portion of our educational law which relates to school attendance have long been felt, and the injury inflicted upon the public interests has long been acknowledged on all sides. The country too has for years been looking to the board as the department of the insular government responsible for the efficiency of our educational system to compel a due observance of the law, but until now it has looked in vain. It officially acknowledged the evils complained of and again spoke of the necessity of providing an efficient remedy for them, but it made no attempt to find a remedy and continued quietly to watch the evil grow until it assumed its present gigantic dimensions. And again, this article goes on at length in tiny black print. It's a strain to read it at times on this issue. I don't know whether there was a number 9 of these papers on education. I didn't see one, but at least 8 long articles on education and attendance back in the 1880s. We'll skip forward a bit to 1933 to be exact. The Isle of Man Examiner, Friday, June the 30th. Attacks on school attendance officers. Well, that's not good, is it? Parents' abusive remarks in court. Abusive remarks were hurled at 2 school attendance officers at Magistrates' Court at Douglas on Saturday by parents who had been summoned by the Isle of Man Education Authority for allowing their children to absent themselves from school without proper cause. Mr. S.J. Neal, who prosecuted for the authority, drew the attention of the bench to the curious attacks that were being made and said that it appeared as if the parents did not realise the importance of education, which might possibly well be the case, of course. Anna Maria Kelly and James Henry Hodson were each fined 5 shillings and costs, but Mrs. Kelly showed strong disapproval of the decision and adopted a most defiant attitude. "I won't send my child," she said, when told she would have a month in which to pay. "I can't pay, and I'm not going to do it." On leaving the court, she shook her fist at one of the attendance officers who was sitting in the public gallery and uttered a host of inaudible expressions. She was called to order by the chairman and left the court repeating that she wouldn't pay. In her case, Arthur J. Kermode, one of the attendance officers, said Mrs. Kelly invariably pleaded that her child was too delicate, but she knew she could get a certificate by attending at the clinic or seeing Dr. Suter. He had arranged for her to attend several times, but she never turned up, and on 2 occasions she had promised to send her child to school, but she had not done so. He had seen the boy in the street often when he should have been at school. Mrs. Kelly repeatedly asked why her application for a doctor's certificate had not been forwarded by the officers to the proper quarter. Goodness me. The clerk asked if she had a certificate in this case, and she replied that she'd got certificates before, and when she got into trouble, the authorities failed to produce them, stating that they never had them. Her boy had suffered with his heart and had bronchitis and rheumatism. Goodness me. Rheumatism at a young age. Mrs. Kelly said that Mr. Kermode had stopped her in the street and spoken to her about the case, and she objected to that. "What right have the inspectors to do that?" she asked. Her child was not in a fit state to attend school, she added, and she was not going to send him while he was ill. Then in the subsection it says, no attendances out of 95 possible. In regard to the suit against Hodson, Mr. Neal said the defendant's child had not made any attendances out of a possible 95. The child, a girl, was 9. Leslie Lord, attendance officer, said that he had visited the child's parents on several occasions and her mother always said the child was ill. He advised her to see a doctor or the school medical officer, but she had not done so, and the child had been going about. He saw no reason why she should not be at school. Mrs. Hodson, who attended court instead of her husband, said her girl was away for 9 weeks before they got any summons. She had been attended by Dr. Rentoul. She was a bundle of nerves and not fit to attend school. The clerk asked why she didn't let Dr. Suter, the school medical officer, see the girl, and she said, "Everybody can please themselves. We are not here to study the school authorities all the time." In fining the defendant, the chairman said that Mrs. Hodson appeared to be going the right way to have her child taken away from her. "That won't happen as long as the child has a father," replied Mrs. Hodson. Serious issues, but goodness me. I think things have improved since then, hopefully, and maybe schools have improved as well. In the Green Final, long lamented paper of March the 31st, 1951, measles affects school attendance. We don't think of that now so much, do we? Measles, chickenpox, influenza and colds have affected school attendances recently, reported the Reverend W.G.S. Duckworth, chairman of the Elementary Schools Committee at the Education Authority, on Wednesday. Attendees during February were North 87%, East 89.2%, West 85%, South 86.5% and secondary schools 90%. In the Mona's Herald in 1953, Tuesday, December the 22nd, we'll read of a black spot in school attendance. "Murray's Road School is the black spot in school attendance," said Mr. Victor Neal, famous, of course, well-known man of the parish, chairman of the Primary Education Committee at yesterday's meeting of the Education Authority, and added the cause is an outbreak of scarlet fever and whooping cough. The general attendance returns for primary schools in the island were North 90.45%, South 90.06%, West 91.02% and East 90%. At Murray's Road School, the attendance was 81.5%, so notably lower than the other schools. And then just finally, to finish off, we'll go right the way back to 1898 in the Isle of Man Times of Saturday, October the 29th. In the High Bailiff's Court, we read, Castletown in the south. Owing to the High Bailiff being indisposed on Saturday, Messrs W.A. Stevenson and G.H. Quayle J.P. sat in his place. Blackberries and school attendance. School Committee of Santon versus Margaret Farragher. This was an action brought by the committee on account of the irregular attendance of her child at school. Mrs. Farragher is an old offender and was fined 5 shillings in fees. George Collister, for a similar offence, was fined 1 shilling in fees at the instance of the Maloo School Committee, as was also John Cackin. William Quayle was also fined 1 shilling at the suit of the Castletown School Committee. The School Committee of Rushen brought an action against William Farragher, whose 2 sons had been very irregular in attendance at school. He was fined 1 shilling for each child. Most of the parents stated that their children had been picking blackberries. Those were the days, eh? The fact they were picking blackberries in October. I don't know if that's climate change, but you seem to pick blackberries in late August, September these days, don't you? Well, certainly I have in the last year or two in any case. School attendance, I think it's probably an awful lot better now, perhaps, than it used to be. I don't know, I might be wrong. And do we still publish the attendance figures on a regular basis in the papers? I can't say I've scoured the papers to look for them. I don't think we do anymore. Either way, we should be grateful, I think, for a free education when lots of people in the world don't receive it and would give their hind teeth. And it's perhaps strange that people don't want to take advantage of it. Whichever way we look at it, of course, it's old news. Until next week, cheerio. You're gonna be yesterday's news.